Hello and welcome to Pandas Nightmare. In today's video, we will cover some terrifying stories about black-eyed children. So let's get started, and if you do enjoy the video, do like and subscribe. The black-eyed children urban legend originated in the late 1990s, with one of the earliest accounts coming from a Texas-based journalist named Brian Bethel. In 1996, Bethel claimed he encountered two young boys with unnerving, pitch-black eyes in the parking lot of a movie theater. According to his story, the boys approached his car and asked for a ride home, insisting they needed to go back to get money for a movie. Despite their polite demeanor, Bethel felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The boys seemed to communicate telepathically, as if they knew what he was thinking before he could speak. What unnerved him the most was their eyes completely black, with no whites or pupils. As Bethel's fear grew, the boys became more insistent, demanding to be let inside the car, but he refused. Eventually, he sped away, shaken by the encounter. After Bethel shared his experience, similar stories began to surface, with witnesses describing children often aged between 6 and 16 appearing at homes, cars, or other isolated places. The children would request entry, but would only be allowed in if granted permission, much like the lure of vampires. Always dressed in outdated or strange clothing, their eerie black eyes were a common feature. Story 1. I used to drive a school bus, and all of my kids were pretty good, especially when by themselves. But there were these two boys at the back of the bus who would act up and do things that got them into trouble. I began noticing in my mirror, right before they acted out, they would appear as black-eyed children. I don't think that it was the kids themselves, but rather a form of temporary possession. They looked like ghouls. Their eye sockets looked empty, and they both had a wider than normal devious smile. Their skin was pasty white. It was freaky. I began stopping the bus and squashing their plans before they could act out. After a while, it all stopped. Story 2. Still sends shivers down my spine. I was the store manager of a nationwide mall computer-later gaming store. This was long before GameStop and cell phones. We were located on the left side, facing the middle of the mall, with JCPenney's to the left at the end. This detail plays into what happened. My ex-wife is a strikingly beautiful Latina woman. She was only 20, and my daughter 1.5 at the time. Unfortunately, fortunately for us, we had very beautiful babies. They almost looked like dolls. The reason I say this is my daughter attracted way too much attention as a baby. We stopped going out in public because people were constantly approaching us and trying to touch her. It's a Sunday. I would work the whole day since it was a short day. The three of us would go to work. My ex-wife would dress our daughter and herself up and make a day of it. She liked to shop and wander for the day, coming back to have lunch. Being the manager, I took long breaks as well. Everything is going along fine like any other Sunday. I go out to give her some money, and my Spidey street senses start going crazy. I look to the left and see a man intently looking at my wife and our daughter. I meet his gaze. He doesn't look away. We had had a huge wedding with 200 guests. I asked my wife if she knew the person staring at her. We both look up and he was gone. Couldn't have been 2-3 seconds since I last looked at him. There was something strange about him, I remember to this day. He was dressed in a dark grey suit with a dark grey overcoat. Not to trouble her, I told her not to worry about it. We had lunch, and we took the long way back to the store. We stopped by mall security. I introduced her to the security guys who had become good buddies. I pulled them aside and told them what had happened. They were concerned. We stopped by the info booth, and I tell the person working there to let me know if she sees him. My ex-wife loves to shop at JCPenney's and go shopping in the store. Before she goes in, I tell her about the man in the grey suit. She let me know she'll keep an eye out for him. There's a call on the store phone. An employee tells me it's the phone. I'm like, yeah, I heard it ring, lol. He tells me he needs some help. He pulls me aside and says it's your wife, and she sounds scared as hell. I jump on the phone. She tells me the man I had described has been following her for over half an hour. When he had first showed up, she said he was reaching for our daughter. I immediately call security. They come up the middle with my employees standing watch on the entrance to JCPenney's. I go out the back into the parking garage, which was no more than 50 feet away. Only 2 entrances into the store, front and back. Lots of emergency exits on the parking garage side. So the only entrance not covered was in the front. Luck would have it, a police officer had pulled someone over from the street and was in the front parking lot. By this point, I don't want the gentleman to go away. I want him caught. Everyone starts converging on the store. He's got nowhere to go, right? They walk to the station where my wife is surrounded by the store manager, several employees, and they have our daughter behind the counter. The police officer had been alerted. More security escorts both of them out of the store to me. We put them in our car and they drive straight to her mother's. 8. They continued to search the store, every nook and cranny. He was never found. To this day, I can remember every detail, but the detail that sticks with me most, his eyes were coal black. Story 3. Not my story, but my dad's. He grew up with a single mom and 4 other siblings in southeast Texas, on the border of Louisiana, in the bad part of town. The house this happened in was behind a nightclub. He was born in 1967 and says this happened when he was 2. And he remembers it to this day. He says him and his brother, who was maybe 6 at the time, were sleeping on the couch in their living room, and they both woke up to a black-eyed child standing in the doorway of their closet. He said the child looked older than them by a little, had black eyes and orange hair, and had a slight glow to him, like he was under his own spotlight. He said him and his brother tried to scream, but nothing would come out. The child just disappeared after that. The reason everyone knows this is true: a couple months ago, me, my mum, and my dad were at my grandma's house, and my uncle was watching a documentary on black-eyed children. When my dad brought up what happened to them all those years ago, and my uncle started tearing up and just kept repeating, "Man, you seen that too?" I thought I was crazy. I can't believe you've seen him too. My uncle has a history of drug usage and mental health problems, and all these years, for over 50 years, he assumed what he's seen was fake and just his mind playing tricks on him. It's sad because we think that this situation shook him up so badly as a kid. He started using drugs as a teen to cope with the thought that he may have been crazy. They were so scared they just never brought it up ever again after that. But my dad always told my mum that story ever since they started dating. My grandma, who was sitting there listening to them talk about what happened, just said, "Oh, there was something in that house, Lord." I'm gonna try to get her to tell me about her experiences in that house. Story 4. During the winter holiday season of 2021, my partner and her son left the country to visit her father, so I was home alone with the cat and the dog. The entire day of the event was filled with strange occurrences. One example being, I walked past the front door on my way to the washroom. I look at the door as I walk by and it just opens by itself. So I closed the door, thinking to myself how strange the timing was. I make sure it's securely closed by trying to open it without using the handle. It doesn't budge. Satisfied, I head to the washroom and do my thing. Walking back from the washroom to the rest of the house, I pass the front door. It's open. The fucking door has opened itself, and this time the dog is barking at it. I tell him to relax, and usually he would. Not today. He finally relaxed after a few minutes of ear bleed. Fast forward to hours, around 1830 to 1900. And it's a nearly identical situation in that I walk past the door, close it, test it, head to the bedroom, come back to the house, and it is opened again. Dog barking again, yada yada. Another 2 hours passes 2100, and I'm in bed when the dog starts in again. I immediately check the front door, and thankfully it's closed. This happens every 2 hours until around 4 a.m. At 4 a.m. I'm woken by the barks, accompanied by 3 hard knocks at the door. My blood is coursing, heart about to beat straight through my chest. As I look through the window to the left of the door to see who is there he is. A 10-ish-year-old indigenous-looking boy standing there in a jacket. Wholly unremarkable in appearance until I look for his eyes under his hood in the dark of night. Completely black, from eyelid to eyelid. The conversation went roughly like this. Me door still closed, talking through the glass. "What's up, little manim? I'm so cold. Can I come in?" Me, "Where are your parents?" Him, he just stands there, silent. He has this eerie fake smile he's showing me while just kind of nodding. He evades the question and again talks about how cold he is. Me, "Do you have parents, dude?" "It's 4 a.m. What the hell is going on? Are you okay? Where are your mum and dad?" Him shrugs. I tell him I can't let him in because I had COVID. I didn't end up getting it. I still wasn't convinced this wasn't a home invasion type scenario. I run to the bedroom, grab my cell phone, and dial 911. I give the dispatcher my name and address while walking back to the front door and start describing the kid. This takes maybe 15 seconds. When I get back to the front door, he's gone. I throw the door open and run out to the street, but he's gone. There's nowhere he could have gone that quickly. We live at the top of a cul-de-sac. That's basically it. I looked for neighbors with any cameras attached to their homes and asked if they had captured anything. Only 2 homes on my street have cameras, and neither got anything. One of the homes with a camera is across the street from us, and while she didn't capture any footage, she said she saw a kid walk in the neighborhood a few days later in the early morning hours as she left for work. But when she got to where she saw him, he was gone. Story 5. My great-grandma lived in a small town in Texas. She claims when she was younger, I'm assuming around her 30s, so this would be like 1950, 1960. She was home at night getting a snack before bed when she heard someone knocking on her front door. She lives literally in the middle of the desert with hardly any neighbors. So when she went to answer the door, there was a child with their back turned toward her. They wanted to come in and asked her if she could give them something to eat. She refused, and they turned around to show her their face with the blackest eyes. She thought it was a demon and closed, locked her front door. She claims to have heard knocking, banging on the door and windows for hours until the sun came up. Story 6. I got 2. So, first time, I used to go to work with my mum. I was around 14 to 15, and we were driving home late, like always. Dark as all fuck outside, and it was raining something bad. Now there's a bridge my mum's convinced is a portal. As strange shit always happens down there. So, as mum's driving out to nowhere, some farmer guy steps out of woods. Trees around the creek, the bridge is above, and we have to swerve in order not to hit him. Thing is, he wasn't dressed for the rain. Hell, it wasn't even wet. Rather tall-looking, farming-looking white guy with brown messy hair. Stubble, old used pants, boots, flannel shirt, none of it getting wet. And when I looked into his eyes as we swerved, it felt nothing but complete, unfiltered fear and dread. He didn't even have weights inside his eyes. Everything was completely uselessly black. Mom paused and asked if we should turn around and check if the guy's alright. Needed a ride, told her I'd jump out the car if she tried. Second time. I'm currently visiting my dad's stepmom and half-siblings. And there's a black-eyed kid outside, white kid in overalls, rainbow shirt, and blonde hair. plus bangs. And just completely black eyes with zero pupils. Thing is, I genuinely feel zero fear nor dread around him like with the other one. Even though he's gotten inside, nothing has actually happened. To me, personally, he's just another spirit kid. He's even told me his name, Jason. Story 7. I've never personally had any experiences, but I met this author at Mohegan Pericon last year. I was instantly drawn to his books. They were incredibly true stories. He's been a paranormal investigator for years. In his second book, about the second demonic torture this poor family went through, black-eyed children were mentioned. And in the book, the author explains that they were demons manifesting themselves as children as best as they could, so that they could get inside. A lot of the time, they'll appear either near cars or doorways, asking to come in, and if you let them in, you've let the demonic in. Story 8. Coming as one from the side of the black-eyed people, I'm told it was like I was me, but I wasn't. I was speaking in voices, not tongues, but distinct voices, and I had very little control over my body. Pretty much took everything I had to stand up straight, and every voice wanted something different. Now, I chalk it up to a psychotic break because it presents so well. But I do remember using what little willpower I had left to walk over to the mirror and look at myself, while I was swapping through these personalities, and my eyes were completely black anytime it wasn't me in full control. Again, probably just me losing it after some thought times. But IDK, it's not like I have a history of psychotic episodes, or have ever had anything like that happen again. Except one other time when I was with my girlfriend at the time. Okay, this part's messed up. She asked me to look into her eyes and tell her what I saw. Super trap, but I did it, and I immediately felt like someone else. She said she saw my pupils go from pinpoint to wide to covering the whole sclera. Like the whole thing, she was not one to exaggerate. And then I told her exactly what thoughts were going through her mind. I just remember being autopiloted for a few minutes. Asked her about it later and she said she was terrified. It was like something else was using my voice to speak to her. The things I was saying were not how I would word them. And when she finally slapped me to break me out of it, my pupils shrank back down, and I was back to normal. Story 9. I saw one. I was about 18 or 19. And my room was in the basement. There was a window even with the ground right behind my bed. I woke up one night to go pee. As I was about to stand up off the edge of the bed, I looked up and I saw a little girl there. She was really pale. Her clothes looked old, like from some old-time movie. Eyes completely black, with this empty stare, just looking right at me. It was like I couldn't move once we made eye contact. And then I fell back and passed out on my bed. It was pretty scary. I had no idea what it was at the time. I didn't delve into the world of cryptids until later on. I'm 31 now for reference, but I still have never experienced anything like that. Story 10. I was sitting with my mother, who I have known all my life to be a very strict Christian. I grew up with this religion, and a decade or so have learned things that made me not follow that faith. While sitting with her and talking about everyday matters, her eyes turned completely black for a few seconds, and then back to normal. At first, I thought maybe it was the lighting of the dark house she lives in, or it was just my imagination. I shrugged it off and tried not to think about it. A few weeks later, as I stayed in that house with her, I began to decline in my health. I began to have stomach problems and have a chronic cough as if I have allergies. My boyfriend stayed with me and began also to have the same cough and worse stomach problems. I have tried to rationalize this with maybe it was the way she did dishes, or maybe bacteria on surfaces. I cleaned what I could and started doing dishes myself while staying there with her. Just a few days ago, I caught her talking gibberish. I asked her what she was saying, and she said that she was praying to God and speaking in tongue for the Lord. While telling me these things, her eyes turned completely black, and it lasted more than just a few seconds. I'm still in the house and scared for my life, just being honest. I'm here to know, WTF? Does it mean, is she possessed? Is she cursing me and my boyfriend? IDK, and I don't enjoy it. If something else comes up, I will let you all know. I'll even try to capture her eyes turning completely black and post it. Yes, I am scared to be here in her presence. That is all for today. If you have enjoyed this video, do like and subscribe. I post once a week or more, so if you like listening to stories while you work, I got you. Hope you have an absolutely amazing. You can check my other videos on screen.